Madam Chair, you have a live mic.
Good morning. I'd like to call the April 25th Big Cypress Basin Board meeting to order. If you would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. McLeod will be joining us a little bit later, and Vice Chair Waters will not be joining us today for the meeting. Good morning, board members. It's nice to see everyone this morning, and I'd like to wish everyone a happy National Arbor Day. For those joining remotely, thank you for your continued interest in the Big Cypress Basin Board. And as a reminder, today's proceedings are accessible via Zoom as well as Collier TV and the district's website. Board members, please make sure your microphone is on and that you speak into the mic so online attendees can hear you. If you turn your head while you're speaking, please take the mic with you so that everyone can hear your comments and the tape will capture them. And please try to get close to the microphone as possible. And if you would, to be recognized, please use your lights on the dais. For those here in person, if you would like to comment on an agenda item, please complete a speaker form from the lobby and bring it to Troy Miller right here up front in the right. If you're joining by Zoom, use the raise the hand feature and Troy will call on you. If you're participating via phone, *9 raises your hand and *6 mutes and unmutes. With that, we'll go to agenda revisions with Lisa Keeler. Lisa, are there any agenda revisions?
No, Madam Chair, there are not.
Okay, thank you. All right, agenda item abstentions by board members. I'll go ahead and we'll go down the line. Mr. Hill?
I have none.
Mr. Romano?
I have none.
Ms. Smith?
I have none.
And I do not have any. Okay, considering the approval of the minutes for the February 28th meeting, are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Hill makes the motion and Ms. Smith seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. That brings us to the Basin Administrator's report. Lisa Keeler.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, board members. I want to start the meeting off first today with congratulating our chair. Charlotte Roman was appointed by Governor DeSantis back to another term with our governing board, which also makes her our chair for the next few years. So we are so happy that you are back with us. Next, I want to highlight y'all's tower groundbreaking a few weeks ago. You guys know I love talking about our tower. This has been such a long time coming. I would say when I was talking with some of our staff at the district, I think 5 or 6 years. We have been looking for the proper site for this tower, working through permits, through the FAA, coordinating with the Immokalee Airport. We had to move it to a new location because of some gopher tortoises at our first location. So this has been a very long time coming. So want to also congratulate you all for your groundbreaking on the largest capital project here at the Basin. So I wanted to bring that to everybody's attention that we've got that off. It is underway, under construction, and I'm told we should be live on the tower. I don't know if that's the right terminology, but we'll be using it by next summer, hopefully for the height of hurricane season next summer. So one more hurricane season flying blind with our water managers. And then we will be on our tower the following year in 26. Lastly, board members, I want to talk about our lease that we have with Collier County for the second office building by our administrative office on Horseshoe. When I brought this back to you in February, we were proposing a 10-year lease amendment with some optional years for extensions. The Board of County Commissioners had asked staff to revise that. And so what went back to their board on April 9th was a amendment to the existing lease for 2 years with 3 one-year extensions. So instead of, I think the original was 12 years, so now it's for 5. So the Board of County Commissioners have approved that, and with your, unless you, I suppose if you don't have any discussion or questions, I'm going to forward it to our governing board at their May meeting for their final approval and execution of that lease. So unless there are any questions, Madam Chair, I'll turn the meeting back to you.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Are there any questions from the board for Lisa this morning? Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you. All right, that brings us to our first session of public comment. There are 2 opportunities during the meeting for the public to address this board on anything that's not on the agenda, and we'll start with anyone who is here in person, followed by those joining us remotely.
At this time, I have no one registered for general public comment here in the room and no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, then we'll move on to our first discussion item, and that will be the Corkscrew Watershed Initiative, the early implementation projects, and Miss Laura Lehman's going to present for us.
Good morning, Madam Chair, board members. It's nice to see you again. I'm Laura Lehman. I'm a project manager with the Everglades and Estuaries Protection Bureau. And today I'm going to be talking about the Corkscrew Watershed Initiative early implementation projects that the team has identified. But before I do that, let me step back for a second and just refresh on what is the Corkscrew Watershed Initiative? What is the project and what are we trying to accomplish? So this project is a 3-year planning study. It got kicked off in March of last year, and so we'll run through 2027. And it's a comprehensive planning study with the objective to achieve ecological restoration of the Corkscrew system with an emphasis on hydrology. So the goal is to improve wetland hydrology, increase wetland hydro periods, decrease the amount of recession in the dry season, so improve water levels in the dry season as well, and just rehydrate that system. At the same time, we have 2 other important objectives, which I talked about last fall, of reducing flood risk and maintaining water supply in the developed areas around that natural system. This is a public planning process, so we're engaging our partners, stakeholders in the region, the public, and we're identifying short and long-term strategies for ecological restoration. With regard to public participation, we have been invited by Audubon to speak and give an update about Corkscrew Watershed Initiative at the upcoming Corkscrew Watershed Science Forum in early June. And then we're also planning to have our second public meeting for the project later this summer, probably in August. So what do I mean by early implementation projects? So as part of the scope of Corkscrew Watershed Initiative, the team was tasked with identifying no regret projects that can be implemented now while the Corkscrew Watershed Initiative planning process continues, and projects that don't have to wait till the end of our planning process. What can we implement now in the watershed that will help the ecosystem, help meet the objectives of the project, and so make continual progress as we move forward with Corkscrew Watershed Initiative. So these projects are separate projects. They're not in the scope or budget of CWI to implement, and they're not official project alternatives as part of Corkscrew Watershed Initiative, but they're separate projects in the watershed that, with the help of our technical working group members and our partners in the region, these are things that can help the watershed as we move along. So they are a variety of projects. They're in various stages of implementation. Some of them require funding. But we would not be successful without the very close partnership and hard work of our technical working group and our partners in this project. So that's just an overall summary. So the main projects I'm here to talk about today are Lee County's Kuiper Preserve project, which is a major flood control and environmental restoration project in Lee County at the sort of northwestern side of the Corkscrew Regional Ecosystem Watershed. And some of their Conservation 2020 projects. There's one in particular that's right on the northern boundary of Corkscrew Swamp Sanctuary. So that's a key parcel that they're actively working to acquire. We've also been coordinating closely with Conservation Collier and their Red Maple Swamp Preserve, which is at the south end of Bird Rookery Swamp. So we've had some great coordination there, and I'll go into more detail about that, as well as just our coordination efforts amongst the team for land acquisition, just trying to identify key parcels that are out there in the watershed that would be very useful to acquire to help with restoration efforts or projects, and just to fill in gaps in the system. There's definitely, as I'll go into later, there's lots of private in holdings still within the cruise system that we'd like to see, if we can, eventually get acquired. But before I talk about Kuiper Preserve, I just want to mention this. This is a great project. This parcel here that's outlined in yellow is what we call the school board parcel. So that is a gap in our land management for Crew. That parcel was donated to the state of Florida back in the late 60s by the Department of Education here in Florida. And so it's owned by the state of Florida. We at the Water Management District don't own this parcel. It's about 320 acres and it's not currently being managed. So Audubon managed this parcel for many years. That requires a lease with the Department of Environmental Protection, the Division of State Lands, but their lease expired several years back. So this property hasn't been managed, for removing exotic vegetation or invasive vegetation, prescribed burning. None of that's been happening on this property for several years. So we reached out to DEP, Division of State Lands, and in coordination with our land management group, they did want to see this area incorporated into our management boundary for Crew. So DEP has actively assigned this to one of their staff. Division of State Lands is working on drafting the lease amendment. We have 2 leases in Crew where we manage lands for the state. I think it's about 1,500 acres or so. So this will be a great addition that we can incorporate into our land management activities. So this I anticipate would more than likely be completed later this year to add that into our lease boundary with the state. Okay, so next is Lee County's Larry Kuiper Preserve Project. This is a major flood control and environmental restoration project that Lee County is currently undertaking. If you can see sort of in the middle, my cursor working, this large square is Lee County Kuiper Preserve. So again, it's at the northwestern side of the Crew watershed. It's 6 sections of land, so it's quite large. It's almost 4,000 acres. They acquired this back in 2017, and the county's received over $23 million in Resilient Florida grant funding for the design and construction of the project. It's essentially, obviously the design is going to be started here soon, but the goal is to hold water back in the natural system after flood, major storms and flood events, and then gradually release that water downstream as the system can handle it. So the benefits of the project that Lee County is anticipating are to restore flowways, protect habitat, improve regional flood control, improve water quality, aquifer recharge, and they're planning on having nature-based recreation as well. So this is really a win-win project for the public, for nature-based recreation, for the environment, for flood control. The project is currently out for proposals, and the county is anticipating starting the contract approval for design starting in June, and then completion of construction hopefully by May 2028. So this project, among many others, was identified within the Southern Lee County Flood Mitigation Plan, which came out about 5 years ago. And just to describe it a little further, it's located at the confluence of the Estero River, Halfway Creek, and the Imperial River watersheds. So this is really a key project in this area that Lee County is undertaking. This acquisition is the 2nd largest in the history of the county's Conservation 2020 program, and it's within the county's designated density reduction groundwater resource area, if you've ever heard them refer to it as DRGR. So we will obviously be coordinating closely with Lee County on this project. There are some future phases coming down the line that we'll have to coordinate on. But this is a major project, and it will also be considered when we complete the modeling for Corkscrew Watershed Initiative, because this is a current project that's happening. We will be including this project in the Corkscrew Watershed Initiative future baseline conditions when we get to that portion of the model. So we've been working closely as well with Collier County and Conservation Collier. I want to shout out to Chad Ward on our technical working group, as well as Conservation Collier staff. We had a site visit on Red Maple Swamp Preserve back in January. So this preserve, let's see, is outlined in yellow. So it's just at the southern end here of Bird Rookery Swamp. It's about 250 acres or so. And this is it's part of the Corkscrew Regional Ecosystem Watershed. And the purpose of the site visit was to see if the willow, there's a farm field that's sort of in the west central portion of the project that was historically farmed, and it's overgrown with some exotic vegetation kind of in this area, and a lot of extra Carolina willow, excessive Carolina willow, which is native, but it can be nuisance, has grown into this area. So we were exploring options for willow removal in that area. Corkscrew Swamp Sanctuary has been doing a lot of Carolina willow removal on their property. We at the district as well have been doing Carolina willow removal in the Crew Marsh, for example. So we were just exploring options for willow removal here as well. What we found just on our site assessment that day was that there's too much other native vegetation to really be comfortable with doing mechanical removal of willow. But the county plans on doing a drone assessment, so flying a drone over that area. It's very densely vegetated, just to see what other options we have for vegetative restoration. So the county is actively working on that. We'll be coordinating further once they find their results. The other thing we discussed on that site visit was the possibility of installing a monitoring well. So this preserve currently does not have any monitoring wells. And so we looked at this location in red, which is a potential location for a future monitoring well. And you have a picture of that here on the left. There is a road, I don't know if you can see, but there is a road that goes east-west through the preserve. So that's a great location for that monitoring well. It's a deep spot, and it's also close to the road with easy access. So Conservation Collier is looking at this. They're looking into costs and final design of the well, and they're hoping that they can install that either maybe this fiscal year or the next fiscal year. And we're also coordinating on land acquisition efforts in the preserve. So the county has done a great job acquiring land in this preserve. It's approximately 80.5% acquired. There's about 60 acres or so, I think, of private inholdings. And so we've developed a flyer for Corkscrew Watershed Initiative that the county is looking at potentially including in their land acquisition letters that go out in May. So next month, they send annual land acquisition letters to those private inholdings just to see if anyone's interested in, selling for conservation. So we're trying to coordinate there and just spread the word about Corkscrew Watershed Initiative, raise awareness, and see if that helps move the needle on any land acquisition in that preserve. So my next couple slides are actually on land acquisition. Lee County is a partner in our Crew Florida Forever plan, which I'll talk about a little bit more later, as well as Collier County. So Lee County has been heavily focused on acquiring property within Crew, and in particular in the Flint Penn Strand area. And they're actively, as I mentioned a minute ago, they're actively under negotiation for this parcel in red. This is a Conservation 2020 nomination. It's about 100 acres, and it's right on the northern boundary of Corkscrew Swamp Sanctuary. So this would be a great parcel to have under public ownership. So this property was approved last week at the county's Conservation Land Advisory Committee to move forward with acquisition. They recommended it and approved it. So the next step is for it to go to the actual Lee County Board of County Commissioners for final approval for the county to negotiate the final purchase. So they're making great progress on that parcel. We're hopeful that it's successful. And then, Lee County has expressed interest, and I think others on the team as well, to try to work a little bit more with DEP, Division of State Lands, through the Florida Forever program, to see if we can engage the state possibly in helping us to acquire more parcels in the region. So that'll be something that we're looking into, in the next couple of years. Audubon, of course, has been a key partner in our land acquisition discussions as well. We've had several key coordination meetings with Audubon staff and our land management staff to reach out to identify, first off, parcels that are close to the sanctuary that we are interested in seeing acquired or conserved. And so we kind of came up with an initial list of properties that we wanted to reach out to the landowners. So team effort, we reached out to various landowners, had some meetings and conversations just to, again, raise awareness about Corkscrew Watershed Initiative, see if any landowners are interested in selling their properties for conservation or just working with the land managers in the area on land management strategies or conservation strategies, to see how we can work together, to restore the system. So we've had great progress on that front. We've talked to several landowners. We even had one landowner come to Corkscrew Swamp Sanctuary, and we kind of had a coordination meeting with him. And as we're talking to landowners and meeting with landowners, we're also looking at, are there potential areas where maybe current access is limited? Access can be a problem sometimes for our land managers and crew, to get access to the public lands for management. There are key areas where we don't really have good access. So that's something we're just cognizant of and thinking of when we're meeting with landowners to see if we can work through some of that and if we can develop some partnerships to have better access in certain areas. So that's been very, very fruitful. And just lastly, the Corkscrew Regional Ecosystem Watershed it remains number 4 on the list. So it's a high priority. It's categorized as a high priority land acquisition area under the Florida Forever plan. So Florida Forever, I'm sure you're familiar, but just in case, the Florida Forever is basically the state's land acquisition program. It's been around since the early 90s. And CREW remains a high priority on that list. There's still about 30,000 acres that are in private ownership that remain to be acquired. The overall Florida Forever project for CREW is over 70,000 acres. So we're just continually working with the group, with our partners, with the technical working group and the district team to look at parcels that maybe come up for sale or that we can look at for land acquisition. And then again, hopefully we can engage, the state if they can help us maybe acquire some parcels. So that's something we're going to be looking at. And I also want to mention, even though the district, Collier County and Lee County are officially listed on the Florida Forever, project as the agency partners, I want to give a shout out to CREW. I see Bob Lucius here today. The CREW Land and Water Trust is also a key partner, in the management of CREW, in public awareness and education, and they also do land acquisition. So they have been in the past, and they are currently looking at some parcels for acquisition, and I'm sure they will continue in the future. So they're also a key member of this group, helping to acquire land and make sure we have a sustainable system in the future. So that's really all I have. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Love the burrowing owl. Thank you. Thank you, Laura, for the presentation. Are there questions from the board? Go ahead, Andy.
Laura, my question is kind of a general question. You made reference to acquisition of various properties numerous times. I'm wondering what financial resources are available, be it state, Lee County, Collier County, to purchase the lands.
Great question. So right now, as far as I'm aware, we at the district don't have any funding for additional land acquisition, but our partners do. So Conservation Collier has funding for land acquisition, as well as Lee County Conservation 2020. They have funding for land acquisition, as well as CREW Trust. But that's why we're looking at potentially trying to coordinate with the state, because Florida Forever has funding to help acquire lands. Of course, it has to be a willing seller. I think I forgot that part, but yes, of course, there has to be a willing seller involved. But yes, so the state has funds as well.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I have a couple questions, Laura. When we talk about acquisition, we often talk about purchasing someone's property from a willing seller. Are there opportunities, and I'm thinking of this as like to do a test. Are there opportunities to not necessarily purchase the property, but to go into a long-term lease? Let's say that the landowner around Corkscrew Swamp Sanctuary wasn't sure that they wanted to sell their land. Let's say it was farmland, maybe it's been in the family or that kind of thing for a long time, but they are willing to partner on a conservation project with us or to test the hydrology around the swamp. So they would be more willing to go into some type of lease agreement. Do we have that tool in our toolbox? Do we have some other tools besides flat out just purchasing the property?
I believe we do. I can't speak to the regulations, for example, for Lee County Conservation 2020 or Collier County. But I know through Florida Forever, at least with the state, yes, they call it less than fee acquisition. So yes, there are ways that you can do conservation easements or they're working ranch lands, for example. There are different options instead of just flat out acquisition. So that is a good thing. And that's a great question. I don't know, well, yeah, the district has separate programs and other departments that allow for dispersed water management, for example, and other things. So we could certainly explore that. And I think that's a great idea. I think that will help us to have a variety of options.
And it might get us further along, it might get us further along in the process. And I think that what you briefed the board today is really some valuable information as far as how the team is looking. I think that because the partnership is so key to our success here, because somebody's got money, somebody's got a program they can fit it under, somebody's got the modeling to know where we need to fix the hydrology or to maybe store more water. I think it's really important that the working group or the team, as you refer to it, really kind of outline some priority and maybe do some dreaming too. If the sky was the limit and we had all the money and all the opportunities, what would be our top 10 locations that we would want to acquire some land? And you're probably already doing this, but just to reinforce that some of this might be necessary so that you can focus this acquisition effort, because I think it's so important. I had another question about the monitoring well in Red Maple Swamp. What do you hope to learn from that by installing a well there?
Well, we hope to be able to document current conditions, so baseline conditions, because there are no monitoring wells on site. So just being able to document current hydrology, and then as the CWI planning process completes and then projects get implemented, they will be able to compare what happens pre and post restoration.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any members of the public who'd like to speak?
We have two registered speakers here in the room. Your first is Brad Cornell, and he'll be followed by Sean Klim. And at this point, we have one hand raised on Zoom.
Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. Brad Cornell on behalf of Audubon, Florida and Audubon Western Everglades. Appreciate the opportunity to comment. And thank you, Laura Lehman, for the good report. And as Laura reported, we have been collaborating very well with the district and with the Basin and staff, and the Corkscrew Watershed Initiative remains just an amazing opportunity to look at a whole region. And this is the kind of approach, if we're talking about hydrology, if we're talking about habitat, and the way the Crew project itself was set up, this is the way we should be addressing concerns, restoration needs, opportunities for public benefits and mutual benefits with private landowners. And so, as Laura said, we have had very productive conversations with a number of our neighbors around Corkscrew Swamp Sanctuary, as well as with some of the public entities, in Lee County and Collier County. I want to add to the list opportunities that we should explore in the future. Collier County Utilities, the Water and Sewer District, the way Golden Gate Estates and the stormwater system is managed are important facets of what surrounds Corkscrew Swamp Sanctuary and Crew, as well as we really like your suggestion, Madam Chair, of looking at other things besides just buying land. Obviously, buying land is really important if we're going to restore or build projects, but sometimes there are projects that can go forward on a private basis that have components or portions of it that could be harnessed for mutual benefit, like restored wetlands or stormwater treatment areas or some sort of storage or stormwater facet that would benefit both the project and the downstream public, or our private sanctuary, as a matter of fact. The 13,000 some acres needs to have that sort of collaborative approach in the region. So, and the dispersed water management that Laura Lehman mentioned as in response to your question, that's a big deal. That works in Central Florida. Why not use it down here as well? There could be where you're paying somebody to store water. That's a great idea. So all by way of saying thank you for the collaboration. That is the regional approach that we all need, and with our private and public partners. Thank you.
Your next speaker is Sean Clem. She'll be followed on Zoom by Roland Ottolini.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Board. I'm just here to really thank the district and the district teams for the collaboration we've seen and continue to work off of on this project. The support from the board, the work that Laura has done leading the CWI team, the support we've had from Lisa and the BCB staff has been exceptional. We've been, just super grateful for the partnership, the collaboration we've continued to have. Specifically, what I'm thinking of is with the modeling, and that's, the big part of what is ultimately going to inform this. When we started working on the modeling, when we the project modeling transitioned a little bit last summer, and we've seen so much progress in improvement of that model, even just over the last month or so. So we're just super encouraged about the direction we're going, the power we're going to have to really be able to make informed decisions in this project, and the collaboration we've been able to have through that process. We, while all of that Laura has discussed is underway, on our side of the fence, we're continuing to kind of hold the line on the habitat changes that we've seen through the over drainage. We're geared up in the next month to mulch another 150 acres of willow. That willow is kind of taken over the marsh in response to that over drainage and is exacerbating the water loss problem. So we're holding that line. We're excited to get hydrologic improvement on our side, and just are really grateful for, the partnership. The 150 acres we're doing this month is going to lead to a total of about, over 1,600 acres that we've mechanically cleared so far and regaining marsh. And that's all, habitat for wildlife and aquifer recharge and a buffer for wildfire. So it's, just a huge asset to the region and to the people of Collier County and surroundings. So we're grateful for the partnership and looking forward to moving forward in the next step.
Your next speaker, Roland Ottolini, joins us via Zoom. Roland, you're being prompted to unmute yourself if you'll do so at this time. And he is not unmuting. Roland, if you'll unmute yourself.
There we go.
There you go. Yeah, you
Thank
have
you.
3 minutes, sir.
Good morning, Chair and board members. This is Roland Ottolini, Director of Lee County Natural Resources. I just want to thank you on Lee County's behalf for the Corkscrew Watershed Initiative. I think Laura and her team are doing a great job. And for us, this has been a welcome opportunity to get various stakeholders in the region to take a look at our project for the Kuiker Preserve and getting their input at this stage, as well as providing performance measures and the ultimate outcome of not only flood protection, but also hydrological restoration in the region. So really thankful for that. Glad you brought up also the land acquisition issues as well. Future phases of the Kuiker Preserve project will depend on further acquiring lands in the Southern Crew process. And, we've been picking away at a few of them here and there through the Conservation 2020 program, but I appreciate some other ideas that you have there in terms of fee, less than fee type of opportunity. So anything that we can do to get that movement would be great. So again, thank you so much for your help.
Madam Chair, that concludes your public comment for this item.
Thank you so much. All right, is there any more board comment, questions? Go ahead, Ms. Smith.
Thank you very much for your report. Excellent. Can we get notified of the public meetings, like a save the date of when that would be coming up this summer when you get it? Okay.
Sure, absolutely.
And I think you do this already, but when you do these reports, I know you do modeling, et cetera, do you have goals that are quantifiably, like how much additional flood risk reduction your goals are? Kind of-
Yes, so that was a big effort that the team went through last year. So it is posted to the public website, the Corkscrew Watershed public website. So we have a whole series of performance measures and metrics that the team collaborated on and developed in concert with JTech. So yes, we have hydrologic metrics for the wetlands, we have flood control metrics, water supply metrics, and there's a variety. But yes, we have finish that part. So that is, and we will be, so let me step back for a second. So right now for Corkscrew Watershed Initiative, we're actually in the project development phase. So we're starting to identify potential restoration projects. So as we do that, we're going to be, looking at those projects and do they meet those metrics? So,
Excellent. Thank you.
sure.
That might be a beneficial thing for the entire board to have. So if you could send that link to maybe Lisa could get it out to all the board members. So they could take a look at that.
Sure.
Any other questions for Laura? Laura, I want to thank you for your leadership on this. I know you're the point person, but it seems like we're progressing and moving along, and the spirit of partnership that I hear from the stakeholders really is encouraging. So I'm looking forward to moving it along a little quicker, okay? But that'll take some creative ideas and maybe some ways that we can use some, best practices from other things that we've learned in the district. So thank you so much, and I'll look forward to the next time you update us on this.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to the overview of the Basin Land Management projects, and that's with Rory Feeney. Nice to have you here today, Rory.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you. Thank you, board members. So it's been about a year since I've been in front of you talking about land management activities. Last year, I talked about the fiscal year 24 land management activities, and this year I'll be covering fiscal year 25. I've broken down the presentation into a few different sections. First, I'll cover two of the projects that are not funded through the BCB budget, and then I'll go on to talk about the projects that are funded through the Basin budget. And then I'll talk about Green Heart of the Everglades. And lastly, the tentative budget for fiscal year 26. So this slide shows what we're doing in Picayune Strand restoration regarding vegetation management. And the image on the right, the map on the right, shows the old roads and trams that were part of the failed development from many decades ago. That's called the construction footprint. The interior parts of the project we call the non-construction footprint. And those large blocks that you see in the different colors in the top of that image there show what we've accomplished during Q1 and Q2 regarding vegetation management. Now we're sending crews out there. They're going after invasive grasses like Kogan grass. They're going after mission grass, torpedo grass, and Brazilian pepper. And so far this year, our contractors have covered 2,000 of the 7,000 acres planned for this fiscal year thus far. And that was all within the construction footprint. And they've covered over 8,000 of the 15,000 acres planned for the non-construction footprint. Again, that's part of the interior areas outside of the roads. A total of $4.5 million was expended on contractual herbicide application services during this fiscal year. And we've been doing a lot of activity, getting a lot of work done because it's drier. Those drier conditions allow contractors to get out there easier. They're not limited by the higher water levels. So that's really helping us. This next quarter, we'll be making a lot of efforts to complete the Merritt construction footprint, and vegetation monitoring will be completed within the Faka Union phase of the area. That monitoring data is to help us verify our success, our treatment success. And so we do that as we're going. We're not just blindly sending our contractors out. We're studying how effective they are and making sure that we're not losing ground. Mr. Hill, I know this is one of your favorite projects. The python removal efforts between the district and FWC are going very strong. This past year, or actually last calendar year, over 2,500 pythons were removed. And thus far, since January, I think we're up to about 230 pythons between both agencies. But the grand total since we started the program in 2017 is over 15,185 pythons. So if you put that into perspective, if those 15,000 pythons were allowed to grow to maturity in say about like 7 years, those 15,000 pythons would have consumed over 2 million fur-bearing animals, everything from small rabbits, also including wading birds and even alligators like you've seen in the news. But I'll stop with the details there because I don't want to steal Mike Kirkland's thunder. Mike Kirkland is our program manager. He's also our lead invasive animal biologist. He'll be back here in July in front of the Basin Board to discuss the details of the program, do a deep dive into the analytics, the research efforts that help drive the program. So now on to programs and projects that are funded through the BCB budget. The fire operations have been going strong up until a few weeks ago. As you know, it's been getting quite dry. But up until that point, staff have successfully burned 780 acres of fire-dependent plant communities as of April. But currently, as you know, the Florida Forest Service is not authorizing burns. There's a county-wide burn, but now forestry has stepped in and said, no, we're not going to authorize burns until conditions get better. So when those conditions improve, rest assured your staff will be out there managing lands with prescribed fire safely and effectively. 780 doesn't sound like much, but over the last 6 years, we've burned over 7,000 acres. So those are very complex, smaller burns juxtaposed next to some very interesting areas that haven't burned or have burned or near residential areas. So we're very careful and deliberate how we do those burns. So yeah, I didn't explain on that last slide. Let me explain a little bit more. So what you're looking at there are those burn units, right? So within Flint Pen Strand, Bird Rookery Swamp, and Corkscrew, all those different polygons represent the different burn units. And we use that same type of philosophy with invasive vegetation management. We pick the units, we target them, we make sure that they're effectively treated. And so these areas we are targeting mission grass and Kogan grass within those 3 sections. And we have treated about 600 acres of those invasive grasses. But over the last 6 years, we've treated over 12,000 acres within the Crew area. Onto Carolina willow shredding. Over the past 3 years, we've mechanically removed 43 acres of Carolina willow, with an additional 45 planned for this year. Now, it seems underwhelming compared to what Audubon is doing. It seems underwhelming compared to the fire and the vegetation management we're doing with our herbicide contractors. But it's important to note that the conditions are different in this area. Access is limited, and most importantly, we have hydrologic inputs from the northwest section of that property. So that makes the conditions wetter, even when other areas can be much drier. So because it's wetter, the equipment that we bring out there needs to have these large mats. The tracked vehicles have to drive over mats, and it's a very slow process putting those mats out there, making sure they're not adversely impacting the substrate and getting their equipment stuck. But it's a slow process, but we do have a scope of work that's scheduled to begin within the coming weeks. "15 culverts. Now we're going to be talking about Bird Rookery Swamp Trail. And on that trail system, there are a number of culverts. We've removed and replaced 15 culverts in the past 2 years, with an additional 6 culverts to be replaced this fiscal year. Once those 6 are replaced, we're going to be transitioning into a maintenance mode to where we're just going to be focusing on washouts and low-lying areas. And the Bird Rookery Swamp parking lot. you all were out there over the last month. You saw how crowded that area can get. It's one of the most popular places for the district, certainly for the basin. On any given day, there can be dozens of vehicles parked there, and there's really not enough parking. People park on the side of the road and do what they can. The image on the lower right there shows the proposed expansion area. We're proposing expanding the parking area about 60 feet to the east and adding split rail fencing, wooden fencing around it, with an addition of a pavilion and a much needed bathroom upgrade. And that's an example of what the bathroom will look like. It's a concrete precast double vaulted bathroom, all self-sufficient, doesn't require any type of plumbing. So that would be a much of an improvement from the porta-johns that are out there now. So the installation of that facility will occur later this year. And a big shout out to the Crew Trust Volunteer Group, who have put in 2,664 volunteer hours from October 2024 to March 2025. And these are just some of the photos and examples of the hard work that they do along the Bird Rookery Tram, the marsh trails, and parking lots. So, Bob, thanks for all the work that you and your team does. This past year, the Big Cypress Basin has treated approximately 395 acres of nuisance and invasive aquatic vegetation such as hydrilla and limnophila. These invasive aquatic plants can quickly form mats and lead to impacts to water conveyance and even cause dissolved oxygen crashes. The field station here utilized a truck saw machine, and they've also used long arm excavators and convers to mechanically remove the vegetation out of the water bodies. And that also helps reduce our needs for herbicide. And that top left photo is a picture of the truck saw. It's an amphibious tracked vehicle that can go into the water, remove the vegetation, place it on the side of the levee. It can get dewatered, then picked up by a trash truck later on. And that photo on the very bottom there is a floating mat of limnophila. That's that aquatic vegetation that, if left untreated, it can top out, crowd out the light, and cause dissolved oxygen crashes and impacts to water conveyance. So in fiscal year 25, the Basin Field Station has been working to obtain the necessary boundary survey for a 1.2 mile section of the Golden Gate Main Canal between 27th Avenue Southwest and the GG3 structure. This survey will help drive the scope of work to remove the nuisance and hazardous trees within the stretch of the canal. And here's a photo of a section of that canal. And so, yeah, you know, those trees, if they came down during a storm, would really severely impact water conveyance. And so we need to get ahead of that, remove the trees that are leaning, remove the hazardous trees that could fall in, remove the nuisance exotic species, because doing it now is a lot cheaper, right, than doing it after the storm. We all know things get a lot more expensive after a storm, particularly when it comes to contracts. And lastly, let's talk about Green Heart of the Everglades. This project is near and dear to me. I've been working with the district on the acquisition and land management plan for this project for the last couple years. And if you're not familiar with it, I'll give you some orientation. The lands are approximately 11,000 acres. And to put that into perspective, you could take the entire city of Naples and put it inside the area that we call Green Heart of the Everglades and still have room to spare. It's located just west of 29 in Collier County, and it's bisected by Tamiami Trail. And it's surrounded by the Fakahatchee Strand Preserve State Park to the west, Big Cypress National Preserve to the east, and Everglades National Park and Everglades City to the south. What makes the lands of the Green Heart of the Everglades so unique are the 9 distinct habitat types, including cypress forests, wetland prairies, coastal marshes, and mangrove swamps. So that's pretty cool. You know, the scale of that is deceiving, but just within a matter of a mile, you go from that upland habitat, the cypress forests, to the mangrove swamps. And there are not too many places in Florida where that happens. And within those unique habitats, there are a host of protected species, including 9 federally listed animal species, such as the Everglades snail kite, 31 state animal species, including the big Cypress fox squirrel, and 120 state listed plant species, including the rare ghost orchid. One of the most iconic species is the Florida panther. And radio telemetry by the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission has shown the area to be highly utilized by Florida panthers. So what that tells you is that the conditions in the prey base are just right for the species, which further demonstrates the importance of maintaining the wildlife corridor in Southwest Florida. So with all that in mind, Wild Landscapes International, which is a conservation group that does these very large landscape conservation projects, they entered into an agreement with the Collier companies to acquire and protect these natural resources. And in 2022, the Florida legislature appropriated funding for the purchase of the Greenheart, the Everglades lands. That following year, the Department of Environmental Protection provided those funds to the district to purchase and close on the property from 4 willing landowners, which included also buying the oil and mineral rights to the land. This resulting acquisition will enhance habitat connectivity and preserve the lands in perpetuity. So that closing was presented to the governing board on May 11th, 2023, over here in Naples. And that was a very well attended governing board, right, Ms. Roman? There was a lot of stakeholders, a lot of interested commercial businesses, family members showed up. They were very interested to see how the district would handle that property. Would they transfer it over to the state park system? Would they retain portions of it? They were very concerned because if the land had been transferred to the state park system, commercial activity would not be allowed. Hunting would not be allowed. And so those are the things that, and the rich history that the residents and the business owners were very concerned about losing, right? So for generations, they had been used to having commercial airboating, used to taking their family out into the backwoods, used to hunting and fishing the area. And some of those things they felt at the time were in jeopardy if the lands were to be transferred to a different agency other than the district. So that kicked off a whole series of public meetings. As you can see, they're listed. We had internal public scoping meetings, hearing directly from the residents and the stakeholders. And we began developing an interim land management plan that addressed a lot of those concerns. And our take-home message was that the management plan needed to be unique for that area, not just some cookie cutter thing that you just take off the shelf and apply here and see if it works. And that the take-home message was that the district should retain all portions of the property rather than transferring it to a different entity. So hearing that, the district coordinated with our state partners, incorporated the suggested changes, and decided to retain all portions of the land. Because the district has decided to retain all the portions of Greenheart, we're able to walk down a very familiar process, just like we do with any other project here at the district, right? We're used to providing reasonable and sustainable public access. We're used to providing public use and even commercial activity at times. So on August 8th, 2024, the district governing board decided to retain all those lands and designate the area as a management area, and to adopt the management plan that I was talking about, and to authorize FWC to create a public small game hunting area. So what does it mean to have the area designated as a management area? Well, that's the first step that allows the public to enter the property. Otherwise, it would be designated as vacant lands, and they couldn't get out there at night, and you couldn't take canoes out there, and just very limited. So now that we can manage it as a management area, It can be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We can allow fishing and boating and passive recreation. We can continue to allow the navigable waters to remain accessible in accordance with state and federal law. So that was an initial win right off the bat on August 8th. And then the board adopted the interim land management plan. And that plan includes historic and resource inventory for the area, past land management activities, identifies the goals and objectives to be implemented over the next 5 years. Some of those goals include managing nuisance and invasive species, protecting, enhance, and restoring hydrology, providing nature-based recreational opportunities, and for opportunities for commercial airboat tours. The interim land management plan is a bridge to the general land management plan that'll be presented to the governing board in 2029. I know that's going to come pretty quick. It seems way out there, but it's going to come quick. Lastly, to allow FWC to create a public small game hunting area. So that will allow us to establish certain dates and times, and those details will still need to be fleshed out with FWC over the coming months. But we anticipate waterfowl hunting south of 41 and even portions of north of 41, as well as allowing the public to remove pythons and our public and our contractors to get out there too and start removing pythons. So yeah, this slide shows just a, let me go one more forward. This slide shows all the different types of recreation that we'll have, ranging from hiking and biking, bicycling, airboating, photography, hunting, stargazing. There's just a lot of opportunity out there, and we're really looking forward to letting the public out there. And what we'll be working on over this coming year is identifying the boundaries, installing signage around the perimeter of the property. As you can imagine, with 11,000 acres, there's a lot of signage to be installed. Don't worry, it's not going to be ridiculous. It's just to make sure people know, when they're entering the state park, when they're entering onto district property, if they're getting close or approaching Everglades National Park, et cetera. Creating access points and determining other recreational use opportunities for the public, as well as coordinating with DEP on our adjoining lands, and cooperating with FWC to amend our existing law enforcement contract and developing hunting season and area regulations. And so that brings us to our fiscal year 26 tentative budget. And what we have here is a comparison of what we're working off of now, the fiscal year adopted budget, fiscal year 25 adopted budget, and fiscal year 26 tentative. Some of the changes that you'll see there are a decrease in the bird rookery tram maintenance. That's because, again, we're going from replacing culverts to doing routine maintenance. That differential, that $50,000 or so, will be going towards other areas like the invasive exotic vegetation management within CREW. So that's gone up from $150,000 to $200,000. We also now have the tree removal project funds within the vegetation management section. Before, it was within the field station, and it's just a natural fit for us to have that within our section in veg management. And then, of course, the big ticket item is the Green Heart of the Everglades, and that is a $500,000 budget line item that is not in the current budget, but we're proposing it to be in fiscal year 2026. That $500,000 will include vegetation management, enhanced law enforcement, public use facilities, and access points. Another small change here, but much needed, is a change to the crew trust agreement that we're still in development. That's not the overall increase. Don't worry, it's not just $5,000, because the agreement with crew trust, portion of the funding comes from the Basin, and a larger portion comes from lease revenue, from ad valorem 101, 202 funding over at the headquarters side. So the total increase that we're proposing for the crew trust agreement between both sides of the fence, per se, is going to be about $50,000. That's still, in draft form. We're still working on that agreement. But, the number of miles that crew trust is maintaining has gone up a lot, and the agreement has not been modified substantially, and certainly the budget has not increased since 2017. They've gone from managing 23 miles of trails to now 43 miles of trails. And now, the number of visitors over the last, 8 years has, easily doubled. And so with that in mind, and just the cost of services and materials going up, it's a very reasonable increase. But as you can see, it's only a minor increase here within the tentative budget. And with that, be glad to take any questions.
Thank you, Rory, for that excellent presentation. Questions from board members? Ms. Smith?
How many truck sorters do you have?
I'm not sure on that. I would have to maybe punt that to the field station. I'm not sure we have a fleet of them over here. We have just one.
Is it just going nonstop? Because I can just see it going, cleaning out all the time. I mean,
It's pretty active. It's more of a seasonality thing based on how much water is coming into the system, and but I'd imagine you're pretty busy throughout the year, particularly during the summertime.
when did you say that this would be open, the Green Heart would be open to the public?
It's currently open to the public. You can go out there now 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're still working with Collier County to there's an access point that we're working on north of 41, just west of 29. And there's a recycling center that they own conveniently right in the middle of the Green Heart property. So we're working on a access agreement with the county so we can get staff, contractors, and the public to go through that road, past the center, and enter into the property. We're also working on a potential access point south of 41. But yeah, there's a number of other areas that access is difficult for Green Heart. I won't lie to you. So that's why we're working with Collier County. We're working with the airboat businesses that are south of 41. And we hope over the coming months and into next year to have additional access points.
Okay, so if I wanted to share this information, like a digital pamphlet, I think we may have talked about this, when would I be able to do that? Or when could I get that information to feel confident that somebody
So
like in my world would go there?
that's a perfect segue
Sorry.
into this recreational guide that the district staff have been working on for quite some time. And this does have a section on Green Heart and where it is and what you can do there. And it also details all the different recreational and public sites throughout the 16 counties. Unfortunately, I only have one today, but we are printing out over 1,000 of them over the coming weeks. But it's got all the history. It's got maps, how to get there, QR codes, and it's just great to have in your backpack when you're going around the state. There will also be a digital version where you'll be able to really focus in and zoom in into the individual properties and the different trails, and that will be updated regularly.
Lisa, can you make sure we get a copy of that link to that? Thank you very much.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, I brought my copy too, just in case Rory didn't have his hot off the press,
Yeah.
and I'll pass it down the days and you can take a look at it. Any other questions for Andy? Go ahead.
Yeah, this is obviously an area that I'm familiar with and I'd like to get involved in it. Maybe we can talk when you're in the area. The access thing is certainly, that was a thing that came to my mind.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking about this project and how for the public to have easy access, it's just not there. But it'd be neat if I don't know if you were incorporating that $500,000 allocation to this to the Green Heart access trails, raised boardwalks, etc. Would be really interesting.
Yeah, the boardwalks are expensive. You'll hear a little bit
And
about that
that may be
later.
the budget right there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the access I was speaking of north of 41 is gonna be really a low dollar project.
Okay.
Land's already there. We can put in a small parking area. We can put in some railing and some signage. And that's really what the people need, right? They just need to be able to park their car and be able to walk in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what we're gonna be able to accomplish on a very small budget there north of 41. Now, south of 41 is a bit of a different story. There's some potential capital projects that we'll be talking about that may take a couple years to get to. But then there's also public boat ramps. If you go down to Everglades City, you can get on a fishing boat, you can get on an airboat, you can get on a canoe, and there's a lot of different ways you can get into the property from the south. Off of 29, equally as challenging. There's not many places. There's
You got one parking area on 29 south of 41. That's a little, it's on the north side of 29, approximately midpoint between 41 and Everglades City.
yeah,
There's a little
I know,
tourist,
off
yeah,
the side a bit.
yeah, that maybe you can leverage that.
Yeah, just outside the project boundaries, but we could work with the city on that.
Okay. The other, on a different question that I had for you, I've been in conversation with a couple different nonprofit organizations looking to study the greater Everglades City Chokoloskee ecosystem, in just an open area of topics they're thinking of. However, specific to your area of responsibility, I'm wondering if there's topics of academic research that would be helpful for your area. Throw that out to you. Maybe you want to get back to me later after you think about that and more in depth. But that's an area of interest to me as well. To studying these areas is to find out what needs to be done in the restoration process. That's all I have. Thank you.
Anything else from the board? I think your recommendations, Rory, in terms of the great work that the Crew Trust is doing for us and how their mission has increased with the expansion of many of those lands is to be noted. I think that's very important, Bob. You and all your volunteers and the whole team are doing a terrific job out there. And it's great to have partners that we can move this forward for the community's quality of life and their enjoyment. Also, I'm very, very proud of Green Heart of the Everglades, an 11,000 acre acquisition. That is just incredible to put that and protect that in perpetuity. And Rory, your work and the rest of the district team was incredible to bring this thing in for a landing with the land management plan and to have all of the various stakeholders come together and reach out and hit that common sweet spot, and everybody agrees. So now we're at the fun part where we get to put in the amenities for the recreation to take place. And the partnership with the Big Cypress Basin's budget and the district's budget, I think, is going to be important in how we keep that area open for recreation and keep it properly maintained. And so great work on that on all fronts, because that wasn't an easy one. That was a challenge. Do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Okay, Rory, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And I've got one copy of the recreation guide up here that we're passing. I don't know if
You may not get it back.
you may not get it back. Rory, do you want to share your copy on this side of the dais for me, please, so they can take a look at it? And the staff is so outstanding at the district. I thought they just put that together in a few months, and I learned that thing had been years in the work. So that's quite an accomplishment. And one of the suggestions that was made was maybe put a few copies in the Chamber of Commerce offices once we get them off the printing plate. So I'll leave that with the board. Some of you may have contacts there.
Madam Chair, my apologies. I just had a hand go up on Zoom. I'm going to assume that was for the last item, just a little bit late. Mike Effenbein.
Okay, great.
Mike, you're being prompted to unmute yourself if you'll do that at this time. And there you are, Mike. You have 3 minutes.
Great, thank you. I couldn't pass up the opportunity. Thank you. I wanted to say what a magnificent job the district did, Rory, his team, the governing board, to just relative to Green Heart of the Everglades, to just listen to everybody's concerns and act on them and ensure that what Rory just presented was as perfect as it was. Thank you guys very much for all of your efforts, for everything you've done for protecting that land in perpetuity, but also ensuring that future generations will continue to be connected to those lands. That was very important. So I couldn't let that go without saying thank you all so much for all your hard work. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other public commenters? Okay, great. We'll move on to the next item, which is the Big Cypress Basin Capital Plan with Lucine Dadrian.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and fellow board members. I'm here today to provide an update on the progress of your capital projects, as well as kind of walk through the current budget and the future budget years. So moving on to our first project that's in design on the I-75 canal. This structure, through modeling, has been determined that it's a redundant structure. And knowing that it was on our capital plan for replacement, it's a deficient structure and was prioritized for replacement, but it's redundant, and to reduce costs over time through O&M and future capital works, we have decided to demolish the structure. So this project is going out to bid at the end of this month, and the hope is to make it to June governing board if required, if it's above $1 million, but we're at this time, we think it's under $1 million and won't need to go to board. And it's about a year construction, year to fiscal year 25, 26. So a year and a half of construction. The next one is the I-75 Canal Weir number 2, and this is the reason why number 1 can be demolished. This structure, again, it's an older structure that needs to be replaced. We're going to replace it with, it's a 600 CFS structure with 3 barrel gated concrete box culverts into the current district standards. It will be remotely operable. It will have a generator, IT shelter. We'll be able to go into local mode if telemetry is lost, but we'll be able to communicate and hold that data and be able to work during a storm. So no matter what, the structure would be operable, the new one that gets built. So this construction timeline, we hope to be done with the design in a few months, and then go out to bid, and then get to October timeframe for governing board approval. This is a larger capital construction project, and it's going to take a few years to construct this one. So here's a picture of the existing structure. It's a weir with a couple of gates, and so it's manual and remotely operable. The new structure is going to be, I'll go back to the last slide. It's going to be, so this is the existing, just to the north of Pine Ridge Road, and then the proposed will be downstream. So you can't take a structure out of operation, but you can start construction, and you need to provide a canal bypass to make sure that you're continuing to provide flood control, as well as the dry season groundwater recharge. So moving downstream or upstream is the I-75 Weir number 3 structure. This structure is a manual structure that requires the field station to go out and to manually operate the structure. But what we don't have at the structure is a downstream gauge to tell us when to open and close. You need the upstream and downstream gauge to help you inform your structure operations. So this is also in design, and we intend to go out to bid late fourth quarter, and then hopefully in early 2026, execute the construction. This is under $500,000 project and will be constructed in FY26. The next series of structures are on the Upper Fauca Union Canal. We have fully executed the design for this. It includes the modeling to determine what these structures need to look like in the future. There have been discussions on, can we remove a structure and then just build one structure that does the job of the two? But we don't know that until we finish our modeling to inform that decision. So, and that would be Fauca Union 6 and 7 are under that consideration. And then Fauca Union 5 is an existing structure that we are looking at. It has 12 gates and currently has a 2.5-foot head loss across the structure because the gate sizes are so small. The frames of the gates, the size of the gates, all of that impacts your water flow and creates that head loss. So during design, we'll determine, is it 6 gates that replace the 12, or is it 4 gates? But that's something that we'll walk through and we'll in the design to retrofit the structure. So the next project, this is a great project. that Rory discussed about the bird rookery. This is the capital component of it. The boardwalk is a 1,400 linear foot boardwalk. It is constructed out of wood and it's deteriorating. So we moved out as quickly as possible to do a design build project to get somebody that knows how to build boardwalks to do the design. So we're not stuck in a design process and then going out to construction. So we've already executed or negotiated the design portion of this. That's moving forward. So once we have a design, then we'll negotiate the stipulated price. That's how the design build contracts work for us. We already have an authority from the governing board to just keep moving forward so we don't delay. So this, we are designing this with a composite material to have a longer lifespan. And while this is ongoing, there are weekly inspections of this boardwalk. And at the same time, if there's any repairs that need to be made to make it safe, those repairs are being made. The intent is to keep this boardwalk open as much as possible. There are a lot of visitors, as Rory said, and it's very important for recreation in this area. So we are hoping to complete design by the end of this fiscal year, August, September timeframe. And then we hope to finish construction in 2026 springtime. So we have two projects through an agreement with Collier County. It's through grant funding. The first one is the Gordon River structure. It's a coastal structure. You can see where's my mouse? So this is what the structure looks like. It's very old. The district actually constructed this structure back in 1992, which was interesting to find out. So we just executed design, fully executed out of this year's budget with the grant funding. And we still need to do modeling to determine what size should the structure be, what type of structure do we want. And as all coastal structures provide, they're that salinity barrier. They don't just provide flood protection and dry season groundwater recharge, but they're also that salinity barrier to make sure that our groundwater stays non-saline, right? So we don't want that seawater coming upstream. So this is a very important structure. Will be in design this year and next year, and then construction in fiscal year 2027 and beyond. So similar is the Palm River structure. This one, same talking points, same time frame, and it's on you can see the Cocohatchee and then the Palm River just north of Immokalee Road, and so the structure is located right here. And both of these structures that I just talked about, Gordon and Palm River, will be district standard type structures with remote operations and the ability to manage them remotely and through storm events. So the project that Lisa highlighted at the beginning, the BCB Communications Tower, this is a great project. It really closes the loop on, our connectivity and being able to see all of our structures, not just all of our structures, but there are rain gauges that inform how we manage the system. There are water level readings, there are groundwater wells. All of that goes into this system and gets reported back. And that's how we pull data, inform ourselves, how we move water around, how we do designs, everything that you can imagine, how we do business is through this SCADA telemetry connectivity and is super important. So this will be the connection between C43 and the Faka Union Tower, and we'll close that western loop back to the district. So we're in construction. And we've funded most of this work. We have second year funding that will be incorporated into next year, but the balance of this work will be funded out of this year's budget. So walking into the budget, we have fiscal year 24-25, that's this year. The adopted budget, you see we were at 5.7 million for capital construction, and then another 2 million for the grant funding. So what happened this year for this funding is that we had projects, we had some rollover money from fiscal year 24 that helped leverage projects in 25. And what we did of that, we encumbered about 13.2 million this year in funding. And with a consumable budget of 17.68 million. So the balance of that 4.4 million in 25, which includes 24 rollover and 25 budget, will go towards funding the I-75 #1 demolition. And then the balance of that money will go towards the tower and its needs to fully fund the tower. So going into 26 includes the start of I-75 #2 construction, includes the construction of the Stilling well at I-75 #3. It includes the balance of the funding from the authority that the governing board gave us, plus some additional funds for construction management oversight. It includes 1.5 million for the tower for contingency for any type of change orders or claims or other needs required. And then it includes additional funding from the grant, Collier County grant of $900,000. So that's the 26 budget and how we built it with ongoing projects and making sure that ongoing design and construction continues to move forward and we don't lose momentum on the higher priority projects. So what did that do for the 5-year plan? That ended up moving out some projects, the canal improvement projects, Corkscrew, Henderson Creek, and Golden Gate 5. Those projects moved out a couple of years. The district has ad valorem funds that we know we're going to get, or we assume, we project, and we need to smooth out our expenditures over that time, so we can't build everything at once. And when we build this plan, we prioritize the work based on the deficiencies, the importance, and move out on the most important flood control, dry season recharge type structures, and to make the district more resilient in managing the system. So the tentative budget moved from 3.375 million preliminary to about 7.5 million. It did increase even with pushing projects out. That is because over time, construction costs have increased. We've seen a over 80 to 90% increase in construction costs since 2020. And we need to make sure that we can pay for the projects that we have moving. And so that is why the 5-year looks like this. And then at the top, you can see the structure inspection program. This is on a 5-year cycle, completed over 2 years, and then it has another 5-year cycle. This informs, again, the condition of the project or the structures within the basin. Minor maintenance goes to the field station where they handle those items, and then the structure gets a structure rating on its deficiencies, or is it near failure? Does it need replacement? It gets risk rate ranked depending on how important the project is in its location, and that builds that capital program. So the structure inspection program is very important for keeping a lot of this work moving. And with that, I'll ask if you have any questions.
Thank you, Lucinea. I think we have a couple questions. Michelle?
Just out of curiosity, the grant funds that we're getting from Collier County, is that from the 1-cent penny tax, or where's that money
No,
coming
I'm
from?
going to let you address it. Ms. Keeler?
Yes, that is our cooperative agreement that we negotiate every 10 years with the county for the operation and maintenance of our system. This last time around, as that came due for renewal, we had talked with them about renewing these or having the district take those structures on. They agreed to pay for that construction. So for us, we treat it as a grant in the budget, but they are paying us to do that.
Got it, right. I remember that now. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Go ahead, Ms. Smith.
What is the operational savings by removing Weir 1?
I don't have the number of that, but if you can imagine a structure is designed for 50 years, if let's say cost the district, I don't know, 100,000, having the staff not have to go to that structure. We're adding structures. We're going to need to go to other structures. So you have the same amount of staff and you need to be able to go to more structures and do more maintenance, but I don't have that number. But you also save in the capital cost of that replacement, which would have been much more.
Overall, there's a savings by doing that, and you are taking away the duplication, which I love. But I just was wondering if there's a dollar amount.
So I don't know the O&M cost, but I would say the structure would have been at least 4 to 5 million to replace and under $1 million to demolish.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, because that's one of the old ones where they have to physically go out there and move that structure.
Thank you.
Michelle?
To piggyback off of that, does it make more sense to just abandon it instead of demolishing it? Because it's so expensive to demolish.
No, because you still need to be able to, you can't have an obstruction in the canal if that structure continues to deteriorate and then it fails. And then you have a storm and then you can't manage the water, right? There is some operability. It's part manual or part weir, part gates. You need to be able to operate it.
Okay, that
And
makes
if the weir failed and then fell into the water, or, you would have an obstruction and flood control impacts,
and bigger problems.
bigger problems.
Right. Other questions or any public comment?
We do not.
Well, Lucine, you got off a little bit easy there, but we
you.
appreciate the work so much that you do with the Basin team, Lisa and her team, with stepping through this capital project program for us. And board members, you probably recall Lisa gives us an annual report. And if you follow along with the annual report she provides with these updates as we move closer through our budgets at each year, it'll really all fit together for you. At least it did for me, and it made it so easy. But when costs keep going up and the budget stays relative, or our revenue stays relatively the same, it takes some magic. And thank you, Lucine, for your great support to the Basin.
Thank you, and appreciate the teamwork that we have across the district to make all of this happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to board comment. Ms. Smith, I'll go to you first.
I have none right now.
Mr. Hill?
Following on my favorite topic, pythons. If someone would like to learn more about pythons, on May 15th at the Naples Zoo, Ian Bordizak is going to be presenting. It so happens that my firm is the underwriter of the speaker series at the zoo. So if somebody would like to come, they can be a guest of our firm. Just let me know and I'll get you on the list. Thank you.
That's great. Mr. Romano?
None at this time.
Ms. McLeod?
Yes, the Kiwanis Club of Naples had reached out to me to find out, learn more about the Big Cypress Basin Board. And I asked Lisa if she would speak to the club, and she did. So I think it was on April the 9th. She came and spoke to them at their annual luncheon meeting, and it went over very well. The group really enjoyed the presentation. So thank you, Lisa, for doing that. And then come to find out, Lisa was on vacation when she did this. So that just shows her dedication. But there just seems to be a real interest in what we do. And so, Andy, I'm thinking, is there an opportunity for us to speak at like a Wake Up Naples?
I'll ask.
Okay, good.
That sounds like an early event. Wake Up Naples.
Yeah, it's 7:30 in the morning.
But it draws a big crowd, and this would be something that they would find interesting.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Anything else? Okay, let's move on to our field station activity report. Mr. Wolf.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Board. Today I'll be going over what the activities of the pump stations and the field stations. Since our last meeting, we took possession of our new dump truck on the right. Our old truck on the left was over 25 years old. I think we got our money's worth out of it. And any surplus fleet like this goes to, is auctioned off online at govdeals.com. And then the money will go back into the budget, the BCB budget. Vegetation removal is it's a nonstop thing year round. And here we have the long reach in Henderson Creek dipping out weeds and putting them in the dump truck to haul to the dump. One thing this time of year, we had a lot of trash pickup in our canals. During wet season, the flow of the canals will bring any litter down to our structure and it'll get stuck in our tough booms, which that's what they're designed for. And it's a lot easier to get out when they're all in one spot. But now with no water flow, the litter just sits there and it's very manual operation to get it out. And here the truck sewer is in 951 canal, taking it out. And you asked about the truck sewer. We do run it practically every day. It's a great machine, but now that the water is so low that the tracks will tear up on the rocks on the bottom. So there's a certain point that we can't run it. So we probably, until we get more heavy rain, we'll probably be keeping it out of the canal. But litter is definitely an issue of any canal that a road runs beside of it. Our biggest project was generator exchange at Faka Union 4. You see here they took out the old generator. They used a specialized tool for the forklift to take it out. The reason we swapped these out, even though it looks in very good condition, it was over 20 years old. So if we have a failure, parts to get on a 20-year-old generator are difficult to find. So we normally switch them out for a newer model. This one was a 35 kilowatt generator. They don't make those anymore, so we had to put a 45 in. So we had to do some modifications to the building, move the gas line. And basically we tear everything out in the building, put in a new transfer switch, and that's a new generator on the right. So if it does break down, we at least can get parts for it more readily available. And again, the old generator will go on the auction and money will be turned to our budget. Just some small maintenance issues like knocked over signs. We keep an eye out for our signs that are out of place or faded, and we go out and switch them out or straighten them, depending on what the situation is. We do hydraulic preventive maintenance at Golden Gate 1 Canal structure. This is Sam from Miami Field Station, and he's a hydraulic tech, so he comes over and helps us. He's an expert on what to do with the hydraulic system. So they'll either change oil or filter it out and change the filters on it and just get it ready for wet season, basically. Our structure inspection program, which Lucinae talked about, here we have divers that are going in to fix some deficiencies underwater. It's a perfect time of year because the water's low, so it's not as much of a challenge. But these are all contract divers. Our 3 months look ahead, basically it's just maintaining the structures and getting them ready for wet season is our biggest priority right now. For our comprehensive Everglades restoration project, this is Mikkel, our IC tech. He's testing out the smaller generators. Generators run usually every 2 weeks just to test, but you can't test how much power is coming out of them. So we put this machine on them once a year to see how much power is coming out and see if they can handle the load. Because even though it runs, it may not be putting out the right amount of power. So we check it just to make sure during a storm and we need it, it'll be readily available. And here we have Adam changing some sensors in one of the trash rakes or the weed rakes out at, I believe that's Faka Union. And just some general maintenance. There's a filter room, it's called, at the pump stations where air is pulled in and blown into the pump stations because when every engine is running, it's very hot in there. So they change the filters once a year on this just to for preventive maintenance. Here we have Raphael and Alfredo changing the filters. The grass rake at Miller Pump Station was removed and taken back to the factory for some modifications. I believe it's a new design they've came out with to improve its efficiency, but we had to lease I believe it's a 120-ton crane on the right to lift it off the tracks and load it up and take it back to the factory. For a structure inspection program, they also do the pump stations. And on the right is Raphael. He's just caulking up some expansion joints. And on the left, the tough booms, the rakes at the bottom, the steel grates that hold back the vegetation were getting rusty. So they pulled them out and replaced those. And our 3-month look ahead, the biggest thing is we want to replace or put the low flow back into Merritt pump station and put the grass rake back into Miller. The video on the right is Miller pump station. We were lucky enough to catch a ride with Forestry, their new helicopter. And you can see the canal has been totally closed off. The spreader basin is intact. So any water that comes down Miller Canal will now have to go through the Miller pump station. So we'll have 3 active pump stations this year. But it was great to get a ride in the helicopter, and it's good view. You can really see how it was filled in there. And I usually end with some hazardous animals out at the pump station. And on the left is an uptick on the rattlesnake population out there. That healthy one was in front of Merritt pump station. And the one on the right is a big Cypress fox squirrel, which if you're not familiar with them, they're usually 2 or 3 times bigger than a gray squirrel. And he will kill you with his cuteness. So, and before we go into questions, I have one announcement. This will be my last presentation to the board. I haven't set an exact date yet, but I will be retiring before your next meeting, which I believe is in beginning of July. I just want to thank the board for your support of the field station and the work we do there. We have a small team, but they're very dedicated. And with that, any questions?
Well, I'm not sure we're going to let you retire. Andrew.
Oh, we can talk. Okay.
Thank you for your presentation. And also I wanted to thank you for the great support you provided for our groundbreaking out there at the tower site. Your guys were really terrific, driving us from where we parked our cars all the way there. And I had the chance to ride in that electric pickup truck. Mr. Hill's very fond of that one. And how's it working?
Very nice. Yeah. It's good for short distances. So we have our contract inspector using it. And that way it's back at the station at night and can be charged up. But it's actually been very reliable and been a pretty good truck.
What's its charged mileage? Meaning if it's fully charged, how many miles can it drive?
It kind of depends. If you're doing road miles, it says 300 miles, but in town it does regenerate some. So it's kind of hard to tell the exact, what it'll get out of a charge. But it seems to get better mileage in town because it is recharging at the stoplights and that.
Mm-hmm. Good. So you're going to come back to the Basin with a report on this. I know that this was a test case to get one electric pickup truck. Right. As you're testing it, you have some metrics and you're going to come back to the board and tell us what your determination is?
Yeah, we're working on that now. Yep.
Okay.
And I'll see who the next superintendent is and see if they can do it.
Oh, I thought maybe we could have you back. That's great.
We can talk.
But Andrew, congratulations, really. I mean, you have been just such a stellar field station superintendent for the Basin. And the Big Cypress Basin has really improved and progressed under your leadership. And sincerely, I know from the bottom of my heart, and I'm sure the board members, I mean, we wish you the best as you move forward with your next chapter.
I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. All right, we'll move on to the water conditions report. Mr. Tredick.
Yes, good afternoon. Bill Tredick, lead engineer, Big Cypress Basin. I'm going to present the April 25th, 2025 Big Cypress Basin Water Conditions Report. So I want to begin by talking about the water year, which we're ending right now, the 2024-2025 water year, which runs May through April. And believe it or not, it's been dry, but it was a wetter than normal water year. We had 62.4 inches over the course of the last 12 months, which is about 5-inch surplus over what we normally get. Kind of hard to believe, as dry as it's been. But if you look at the graph on the left, you'll see just how wet the wet season was. It was a very wet season, beginning in June with ridiculous amount of rain in mid-June, and then it continued on through Milton in October 10th. And then the faucet turned off and we entered a very, very dry season. So it's a kind of a water year of extremes, wet, and dry. The graph on the right shows just how dry this dry season's been. We're down around the 5th percentile, so it's been very dry. You'll probably hear that a lot on this presentation, the words dry, because it's been a dry spring. The last couple of months have been exceptionally dry. On the left, you see March's rainfall was only 36% of normal. And on the right, you see April is even drier than March, with only 0.3 inches average over the basin, 12% of normal, which ties, looking back for the last 30 years, the last time we saw numbers this low was in 1998. And unless we get a little rain before the end of the month, the total April rainfall will most likely fall in the top 10 driest Aprils since 1932. So it's been a bit of an unusual month. The 2024-25 dry season summary. So how dry was it from November through April? There's that word again. Only 5.3 inches of rainfall since Milton came through on average across the basin. That's unusual. It varied a little bit. Some areas got as low as 2 inches and some areas got as much as 7 inches, but it was just, again, unusual. The distribution by basin, by sub-basin was fairly consistent, but a little less consistent when you look at the radar pixels. So how are we holding up? Laura talked about the Corkscrew Swamp, so I wanted to briefly touch on how that's doing. You'll see on this picture to the left, Cork 2, which is the structure right there that goes into our Corkscrew Canal system. We started operating it slightly differently in 2024. And you'll notice on this graph that it started about a foot higher, and that's how it's was operated this year. And at Cork 2, that's been a benefit. We're now operating that structure around the 75th percentile versus the 25th percentile you see that it was at in 2023. But, and here's the but, the Corkscrew Swamp still recedes like we saw in 2023, even with those operational changes. So I wish I could say there was a lot of benefit, but raising that water level at Cork 2 didn't do much, if anything, to improve the hydro period in the middle of the Corkscrew Swamp. So further changes at Cork 2 really aren't the solution. And that's what Laura's working on with the CWI, is to try to find those solutions, because it's something more. There's got to be something else we can find to extend that hydro period and improve Corkscrew Swamp. But unfortunately, Cork 2 is about all we can do without causing flooding problems up in that area. So we're going to keep looking, and Laura's working hard on it. So considering how dry it's been, hydraulic conditions are better than we might have expected. Corkscrew Swamp is low, but the rest, at least in the middle, but the rest of it isn't that bad. We're seeing a lot of areas in the 25th to 75th percentile. Most of the basin canals are also operating in the 25th to 75th percentile. A few are lower. You see some yellow spots there where it's below 25th, and probably in the next week or two, a couple more will drop into the yellow. But overall, we're not doing too bad considering how dry it's been. Picayune Strand is also doing pretty well, averaging between 25th and 75th percentile. You see those marks, looks a little different than the last time you saw this graphic where it was filled in different colors. But I wanted to show where the various monitoring wells are, so you can see the real benefit in a little bit of a smaller scale. All those blue and green dots that you see means the restoration's working. If this graphic had been shown before the restoration, those would almost certainly all be yellow. And I don't know if any would be red, but they'd almost certainly be yellow. The one yellow one you're seeing at the bottom is where Miller Canal plugging has not yet been completed, and that's why it's yellow, and it's down in the 25th percentile. It's going to look a little different next year. The plugging's due to be completed hopefully in June. So even though we've been dry again, there aren't really any groundwater resource concerns in BCB and in Collier County. The lower Tamiami Aquifer is around the 50th percentile down at US 41 and up at Lake Trafford. Tamiami Aquifer wells near the Cocohatchee and Bonita Springs area are lower, but they're not really in the areas of high concern yet. You will notice there is one red dot on the screen. That's a sandstone aquifer well in Bonita Springs. The good news is it's not really relied on heavily for water supply. It comes back quickly. It rises and falls quickly when the rainfall comes and goes. And in talking with other district staff, it's not really a concern at this point from a resource perspective. So yes, it's red, but it won't be when the rains come back. So the FAC Union, if you remember back to that graph I showed that had all the different colors for the canals, the one spot that's really doing well is the upper FAC Union Canal. It's at the 75th percentile right now. We've been very successful at conserving groundwater north of that FAC Union 5 structure. The graph on the right shows basically the top and bottom of the FAC Union system. FAC Union 5, there are a couple of structures above that, but FAC Union 5 is kind of the dividing line where we hold that water back during the dry season most successfully. And you notice the graph on the bottom, that's the FAC Union 1 structure now by US 41, and you see it diving. Well, that's because Miller Canal plugging is going on, and that's groundwater that's not going into tide now. If those pluggings hadn't been taking place on Miller, that blue line wouldn't be as low as it is, and that would mean groundwater is going to tide. So that's really a measure of the success of the plugging that's ongoing right now. So I wanted to show you a couple recent photographs. This is FAC Union 5, which I mentioned. The picture on the left is looking upstream from the structure. The picture on the right is looking downstream from the structure. There's a lot of water we're holding back at that structure. Upstream, as I said before, it's about the 75th percentile. And you might ask, well, that's great. What's all that water doing up there, but not down below the structure? Well, we can't really let it out for a bunch of reasons. The number one reason is simply there's not enough water up there to really make a meaningful difference downstream. If you let water out, the north piece would look a lot like the south piece, and it would all be down in the 25th to 50th percentile. And the other thing is that any release from up there would have some real potential impacts up in areas like Winchester Head Slough and other upstream wetlands, which it's really important we preserve that groundwater to the best of our ability in those areas to the north. So, you know, the thing about that stretch of canal is it's dry, but it's not unique. If you look at this picture in 2018, it was drier than it is right now. It was pretty much dried out. And there's other pictures that I've seen where it's even drier than it was in 2018. So drying out of that stretch between FAC Union 4 and FAC Union 5 is really not unprecedented nor unique. It happens when we have drier than normal dry seasons. It will come back pretty quickly once the rains return. So I want to finish with a note of optimism. We've been dry, but the U.S. seasonal drought outlook expects the drought conditions to lessen over the next 3 months. So the end is in sight. I don't know exactly when it will come. It could come in May, it could come in June, but we are expected, and you see on those little image insets on the top right, we're expected to have a little bit wetter than normal summer. So that's going to help refill everything. At this point, there's not any real reason to be overly concerned. The drought is expected to lessen and eventually end sometime in the summer. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much for your report. Questions from the board? Everybody's good. Thank you so much for your excellent report.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to the staff reports. Monthly financial report. We have Candida Heater joining us by Zoom. Are you there, Candy?
Good afternoon, and thank you, Madam Chair. The monthly financial report that I am reporting on this afternoon is through February 28th, 2025. Thus far, for your ad valorem taxes, the Basin Board through February has collected $13.2 million out of a $14.3 million projected budget for ad valorem taxes. That's at 92%. We have also collected an additional $5.2 million of intergovernmental revenues through the Collier agreement that was discussed earlier during Lucinay's presentation. And your investment earnings are at about $234,000 out of a projected $200,000 budget. And of that, $68,000 is, investment earnings that gets deposited into the account that we deposit the funding from the Collier County MOU. We have also expended about $3.9 million, so $4 million, and we have under encumbrances about $14.9 million. So now comparing this February to last February of 2024, we have collected an additional $6.4 million more this year. So $6.4 million thus far in comparison to last year. And that is due to basically the ad valorem, a little bit of ad valorem revenue, additional ad valorem revenue that's been collected thus far in February compared to last February, as well as the $5.2 million intergovernmental from Collier County. We received it earlier this year than last year. And as far as the expenditure side, we've expended about $1.6 million of additional funding in comparison to last year. So that concludes my report. Everything seems to be, on the mark as far as your revenues go for your collections. Thank you.
Questions for Candy? Mr. Hill?
Candy, in the summary of revenue sources on your point on taxes, I don't know if this is significant or not, but I thought I'd ask. Your report indicates compared to the 5-year average of receipts, 90.4%, and you're 2% below the trend at this time. Is that meaningful?
No, sir. Thank you for asking that question too. A lot of the times, sir, it is based on timing of getting the postings in the system and receipt from the county. So we are now, I was looking, we're close to $14 million collected. So you all are almost 100% collected as of today. So no, it is of no concern. A lot of the time, like I said, it's timing of when we get it posted in our system.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Ms. Smith.
Hi, Candy. It's PJ. I got a question for you on our actual report. Where is the 6.4 million increase from 24-25? Where is that captured in this report? Did I miss something?
No, ma'am. It is not one of the analytics that's listed in your report. It's just something I try to give you a comparison of. I bring up last year's report that you have through February and compare it to this year, just so you kind of have a feeling as to where we are compared to how we did last year, knowing that last year how we ended the year, we collected all of our revenues, etc. So it's just a little extra that I try to give you a mark on.
I like your extras. Do you remember what it was for between 23 to 24 what that additional ad valorem was? I'm just curious.
What I can do is I can look and I can follow up with you.
Perfect.
I don't have that.
I just want to see what the
right
trends. I just want to see what the trend is, and you would expect an additional for next year.
Yes, ma'am. So what we can do is we, as Mr. Hill pointed out, that we do trend and have historical trends of what the Basin revenue, ad valorem revenues have been. So we can most definitely get you that file to where you can see, how our trends look and have looked over the years.
Perfect. Thank you for your report.
You're welcome.
And Candy, I want to thank you and Julie for working with us on this budget. I know we're just starting the process, But with prices changing and all of the challenges that you face this year, really want to appreciate, give you a shout out for the great work you're doing with the Basin team and bringing all those resources to bear and helping us figure it out. So thank you so much.
I appreciate the kind words and for staff and myself and as Lucinay mentioned, and it's a team that we meet often, and it's led by Miss Keeler. And we do meet often and stay very close together. We work very well together, and I appreciate your acknowledgement. Thank you.
Thank you, Candy. I don't see any other board questions, so have a great day.
You too.
That brings us to general public comment. Again, this is another chance for members of the public to speak on anything that was not covered in today's meeting. Troy, is there any public comment?
We have no registered speakers here in the room and no hands raised on Zoom at this time.
Okay, well, that was easy. We'll move on to our final board comment. We'll go ahead and begin with Ms. McLeod.
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Romano?
None.
Mr. Hill?
I have nothing. Thank you.
Ms. Smith?
Just have sadness for Andrew leaving. And I thought I had a great idea for invasive species because it's on the rise. So you're going to laugh. So in some parts of the United States, the goat is being very active in removal, but apparently not an effective way. But I thought it was a brilliant idea, but never mind. Sean is shaking her head.
That one might get legs. It might,
No.
that might follow you. I just have one thing. I know that Lisa highlighted our wonderful groundbreaking for the communications tower. And it was great to have the board out to participate in that because it was quite a drive to get out there. And I want to thank the district team, Jill Margulis and all of the folks that supported that event, and also the field station guys. Like I mentioned earlier, I got a chance to ride in the electric truck to see firsthand how they were using it and everything by that event. So it takes a team to put something like that together. It was in the middle of nowhere where the tower's going to be. And I just wanted to make sure I said thank you for that. That concludes our meeting today. Thank everyone for participating. Lisa, your entire Basin team and the presenters and the district team, all of you for supporting our mission, both here in the Basin and in the district. So with that, our next meeting is going to be Monday, July 7th, as we get into the budget even further. And so with that, we're adjourned.